Hello there, World of Tankers. Welcome back to another one of my videos. I am Blitz, and today I'm going to be talking about the Tier 7 heavy tank, being the Lycan, which has just hit the game today in a really cool Halloween event. And as always, I'm going to be talking about the tank, how to get it, of course, whether or not it's worth it to try and grind down the line. Unfortunately, though, I'm not going to be talking about the armor, or at least showing you guys the armor. I'll still talk about it, but Armored Spectre showing the upper plate a lot weaker than I thought it was, and then Blitz Hanger showing it a lot thicker than I thought it was, too thick for really how it's been playing in battle. So both of these statistics I've been shown on the armor so far seem very far-fetched, so I'm just going to talk about the armor in my opinion and how it bounces shells. Now right off the bat, I'm going to get straight into the tank, obviously. The first thing I noticed about it was, when I was looking at it quite a while back, I was like, okay, this is like an Object 252U. It's got the pike nose design, very steep upper plate, making it, like a 50-50 pen at tier 8s. Even some tier 8s are going to have a hard time penning that upper plate. And the lower plate, of course, is just like the Object 252U, making it a weak spot. However, one thing I do know about the Object is that it has 5 degrees of gun depression, and this tank has 10. Which is a crazy, ridiculous number, especially for a tank with the funky troll armor this has. And, I was running the tank quite a bit, and that 10 degrees of gun depression just seems so strong when you're playing up against enemy tanks, because it also has a 400 damage gun. And there's a tank like this already in the game called the Lupus, and most of you guys know the Lupus is one of the most overpowered tier 7s in the game. However, the one thing the Lupus really lacks is the turret armor, and this tank has it. Its turret is actually about 300 millimeters thick where that gun mantlet is, making it pretty much impossible to penetrate through that gun mantlet. Now, it is like a Super Pershing where you can shoot around the gun mantlet or above it, and I'm pretty sure those are some very weak spots on the turret, but it's a pretty much auto ricochet. You can see here that LTTB bounced right off the turret. I'm going to slam an HE right into the side of him. And we've already blocked 980. We've blocked way more than we've received. And we're just going to keep on going. And I really think this is just an excellent tank because of that. Now, this shot I was just messing around here, seeing how good the HE was. But again, because this tank has that 400 alpha gun, it's able to get some very nice high explosive penetration out. Now, I do run calibrated, so it brings your damage per minute down to 1767 if you do run calibrated. And it only drops at about 120 when you do put on calibrated. And I would suggest you do when you pick up this tank, or if you do, because calibrated gives you a, more standard penetration, gives you about 184. And your APCR goes up 11, and the most important thing is your high explosive. When you run a 120mm gun, you really want to maximize the amount of damage you can pull out with high explosive, because you're dealing 500 average damage. And actually, I take that back, this tank does 515 average damage with high explosive, which is a very large number, and you want to maximize as much penetration as you can with the high explosive. Now, the tank, as I said, doesn't have a spectacular damage per minute, but because it does that 400 damage, it really just helps you out so much, because you don't have to constantly pull out, tanks that normally have 10 degrees of gun depression, like, a Type 59 Patton. You have to pull it out constantly and keep pumping shells out into the enemy. The nice liberty about this tank is you pump one shell, back up, wait your 13 seconds, pump out another, and back up. And this tank doesn't have awful aiming time, 2.75, and the dispersion, that is pretty bad at 0.417. But wait until you see this next game I'm going to show you. Now, the game, as you can see, was played on Rockfield, and Rockfield is an excellent map to really maximize your gun depression, because you've got a lot of hilly terrain, and pretty much both sides of the map have just excellent areas where you can really maximize your gun depression. And I've really learned that this tank is just super strong when it does use the gun depression, because the hull armor on the tank isn't spectacular. And I watched Meetsy's video, and he said the tank was balanced. And I'll get into my opinion on it in just a little bit, but he was saying it's balanced not only because the tank just wasn't overpowered in the gun statistics, but also because the tank doesn't have spectacular armor. It doesn't really have some spectacular spaced armor. First of all, it really doesn't have much spaced armor, because the tracks are on the outside. That means you can easily just shoot a shell right through the front track wheel and pretty much immobilize the tank while damaging it. That's pretty easy to do when you are running against this tank, and that's one thing I would really suggest you do, is try and utilize that front track wheel. It really doesn't have a lot of armor on the sides. It literally has, I think, 60 millimeters, 70 millimeters thick on the sides. So if you want to take this tank out very easily, just shoot it in the sides of the track when you get a shot at that front track wheel. But again, what I was saying about Rockfield is you're going to see here, in just a moment, I'm going to utilize my gun depression just so efficiently, and it really changes the entire atmosphere of this tank's playstyle. Because the tank's upper plate, while it might bounce quite a few shots, and look at that, 595 there, but the upper plate might bounce quite a few shots. You know, it's about 220 to 230, I'd say, in my opinion, which means that, you know, Tier 7s are going to have a 50-50 chance of penning you with APCR, and depending on how the pike nose is angled towards them, and this is the upper plate, by the way, not the lower plates, but it all depends on how you angle it. But you're seeing here, I'm just aiming at the Stritzwagen, boom, 2 shells into him, and we killed him, because our high explosive has just such a ridiculous amount of penetration and damage, 515. I think that's more than the average, which I was really amazed to see just now on Blitzhanger. But you can see we already picked up 3,300 damage in this game, and we were just easily able to pump these shells out. And to be honest, I think the tank is a little bit overpowered. I wouldn't call it, you know, even closely related to a Smasher. And I still wouldn't put it as high up as the Helsing. But this tank just has very, very good characteristics. It goes 35 kilometers per hour. The gun handling characteristics, you can see that dispersion. I told you it's .417, which is awful sounding. But the shells seem to fly correctly where I want them to. You can see 4,200 damage picked up already. And this game is still going on. It just pumps shell after shell out. I rarely miss shots. I'm sitting at like an 80% win rate and 2,900 average damage. Now, of course, the, you know, average damage and everything is going to level out eventually. I just had one of the games like this. I've only played 8 games in it. But overall, I'm going to say it's got to be one of the better Tier 7 heavies in the game. It completely outclasses the IS-2. Now, the lower plate, the last thing about this tank is awful. It's probably only about 120, 110 thick. You're not going to bounce any shells in the lower plate. You can see that Sturra shot a shell right through my lower plate. So definitely do not let tanks see your lower plate. But as I just mentioned, this tank is the 10 degrees of gun depression, which means that you can use this tank like a normal heavy tank. You can use it like the Object 252, but then when you're up against mediums or tanks that have the more penetration, you can just put it on a hill, use that awesomely armored turret, and it's a very small turret as well. And I'll just show you how small that turret really is, but because the turret is so small, it makes it just such an ever harder target to hit. You can see it's a very small target. Now you can shoot above the gun mantlet, and I think you can also shoot below it as well, but it's a very, very tough penetration because of all the funky angles the tank does have. So overall, I think this is an excellent tank, and to be honest, the event isn't that expensive at all. It's $10, and then it's just, you know, battling every day. It might only take you just a couple days of grinding to really pick this tank up. And to be honest, which was really ironic for me, is when I was getting this tank, I had 8,000 gold in my account, which I was saving for the event, and then I also just bought the $10 stages, and I managed to get the tank with about 8,000 gold and $10. So for me, or anybody else, it'd be about $40 to pick up the tank right off the bat. And not to mention, I got 207,000 free experience. I got quite a bit of more gold. I actually got some Helsing containers, a bunch of other stuff. This is a very, very good event. I do disagree with Meadsy's opinion. Meadsy, if you're watching, I'm sorry, but I do disagree with you saying it's balanced. I still think it has a very big edge over many of the other Tier 8 heavies in the game. I mean, not Tier 8, but Tier 7 heavies in the game. And the fact that this isn't a collector made me super happy because that way at least they're not going to be able to nerf it or anytime soon. So rest assured they're not going to be nerfing this tank. But this is definitely a one-of-a-kind vehicle, and to be honest, I think it just looks even better without the camouflage on. I just had to go all out and get it. But really, for $10 you can earn this tank. It's not a super hard event. That's not bad for what you're getting out of it. And the really ironic thing was that even though I've spent, I think it was $400, $500 to try and get the Badger in crates, and I couldn't get that with what? It was a 3 or 2% drop chance. I opened up 2 Helsing containers, didn't get the Helsing. I got some gold and stuff, which was nice. And then I opened up the Dracula containers and picked up the Dracula. And I already own the Dracula, which was really just disappointing to me because I was really, I never get the tanks that I ever want in crates, but then I just randomly get tanks that I already own, which was pretty funny to me. But it gave me 6,500 gold, which brought me back up to 8,000 before. I used a bit of my gold, of course, as you can see, but it brought me all the way back up to 8,000 gold, so it literally only cost me $10 to get this tank, which was pretty funny for me. But yeah, I really do like this tank. I think it's excellent. And if you want to see my equipment, I'll just leave it up here for a minute so you can see all the stuff I do have on it. Actually, I should put on the hit points. Ignore the enhanced armor. Always put on the hit points. But it's a very quick tank. Goes 35, as I did say, and I just feel it's excellent. It can definitely do the part. It's fun to play. It's one of the coolest looking tanks in the game currently, in my opinion. I really like the look of it. And because it's at tier 7, even if it is overpowered, who cares? Tier 7 is a tier that is just filled with overpowered tanks left, right, and centered, so it really doesn't matter. But I hope you guys did enjoy this video. As always, make sure to smash that like button if you did. If you didn't like it, hit the down vote button. Let me know why you didn't like it in the comments down below. All responses and criticism are greatly appreciated. And other than that, I hope you enjoyed. Hit that subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.